Hello and welcome. Today on the sofa we have Grace, who is running for sports officer. So Grace, please introduce yourself and tell us why you're running for this position.
So my name's Grace Brady and I'm running for sports officer because I'd love to make a difference within the union and the university itself, and I'd love to pass on the enjoyment I've had through sport to fellow students, as I feel like it's a big part of university experience for a lot of people.
Okay, so behind all this, what's been your motivation?
I think my motivation is that I've always enjoyed sport, but I've always enjoyed the sort of the other side of sport, it's like the sports management and like the behind the scenes sort of stuff. So I feel like that's probably why I've done it.
Okay, so this year, this sports officer, it's been introduced as a new thing. Why do you think the uni needs a sports officer?
Particularly because Team Leicester is so big now, and also the other parts of sport, it's a lot for someone to take on with other roles, like with all the societies and everything. I feel like if you have one dedicated person, Team Leicester is going to become the best it can possibly be.
Yeah, okay. So are you aware of the 4 pillars within sports strategy?
Probably not as much as I will be if I get elected, but I know of some of them. Yeah.
Okay, so let me tell you what the 4 pillars are. There's performance, podium, participation, and volunteering. As your role as sports officer, how will you encourage people to, ride along with the 4 pillars?
Yeah, so obviously the 4 pillars are an integral part. I feel like volunteering, one of my plans is to open up and expand things that don't belong to the Bucks League, so things like Let's Do Leicester and Intramural, and at the moment they are student run, so we can increase volunteering by that. Performance, obviously we need to start looking at facilities so that we can attract athletes and also keep athletes here, so that they want to come to Leicester, and that will enable Team Leicester to become better and produce better results. What's the other one?
Okay, there's podium.
So yeah, obviously we want to get more results, and I feel like when we give more funding to sports teams, for instance, so they can employ more coaches, also with things like psychological help, because a big part of participating in sport is mental barriers, but you need to put the steps in place before you can get the results that you want.
Okay, so going back to when you mentioned about getting the funding, where do you plan on getting the funding, and how do you know you will get the funding you want?
My idea is to approach the sporting bodies within England and the UK, and Sports England and a lot of the other sporting corporations have pots for development, and if you apply you most likely get them. So I feel like if we also go down that route, we might be able to get some more for development funds to develop pitches and things like that.
Yeah. So going on to the 3rd pillar, which is participation, how are you going to ensure that people do actually take part within this?
So that's another big thing for me. I've been involved in Intramural myself, and Let's Do Leicester started as an initiative, and I want to expand the Intramural League so the popular ones, people can join those and there's not a barrier because they weren't quick enough to get in with their applications, and also expand the advertisation of Let's Do Leicester, because there's some really fun activities on there like bubble football, and people can get involved that way, so the participation levels I want to increase.
Okay, so in terms of volunteering, how are you going to ensure that people do come forward and volunteer, because at the end of the day uni is very busy, people have their own societies and stuff to do?
I know particularly for netball, because that's what I've been involved with, the intramural officer usually comes from within that, so I feel like we can utilise the sports clubs we have on campus, but we can also draw from a wider source, because there's lots of students who are looking for opportunities, particularly when it comes to CV boosting, and getting involved in something like that will enhance your choices and show employers that you do have like that extra little bit over someone else.
Okay, so what's your opinion on initiations?
So the line, my opinion would be the line of that the union takes. You shouldn't be forced to do anything that you don't want to do, and also you shouldn't have to take something to become part of a sports team. If you're good enough to be selected, or you want to even join the club as a social member, I think then that's what you should do. You don't need to earn your place.
Definitely. So in terms of sport as a general, what do you think are the biggest problems within the University of Leicester?
So I think there's a couple of problems. There's a few problems with Team Leicester itself. I don't feel is given enough coverage. I know my plan is to have a weekly roundup and a team of the month. So each club within the university will have its chance to be highlighted and show that the talent they've got in it and how they're doing within their own Bucks leagues and development and what teams are doing. And then also funding is a big problem. There's disparity in where funds go, and obviously that's going to happen anyway, but there's also extra things that money needs to be spent on. For instance, I spoke to a girl who did hockey this morning, and she says that their pitch just isn't up to the scratch of everybody else's, so we need to identify those problems and sort those out as well.
Okay, so obviously students being at the heart of basically everything in the University of Leicester, how are you going to ensure that students do take part in sports, whether it being the mainstream sports or new sports coming up?
So I think mainly through advertising. I think we need to get out there and talk to students about what they want and what they'd feel comfortable participating in, particularly with things like Intramural and Let's Do Leicester. That needs to be led by students and run for students so that students get the best that they can out of it. So I think, for instance, using things like Freshers Fair, International Freshers Fair, Refreshers Fair, Twitter, big social media has a big platform these days, and I feel like promoting those things will get more attention, so they'll get noticed more.
Yeah. Okay. So you've made a claim that you plan to ensure that players don't miss any contracted hours to their fixtures. Is it possible?
So my plan, I believe mine is realistic. In line with the university's plan to roll out lecture capture to another 120 rooms within the university, I believe if you do absolutely have to miss your fixture, say for instance you're on a cup week and you've got to leave at 10 o'clock, that we will ensure that there is lecture capture in the room that you are in, so that you can't be there physically, but you are able to catch up on that work and you're able to listen to it and not just have to try and get your friend's notes or their recording or something like that. So I believe it is realistically if we work in tandem with Bucks and the university.
Okay, so do you reckon module leaders, lecturers, will they be up for that?
I'm a course rep within my department, and I know, for instance, the politics department are working heavily towards, and it's something that university is pushing for. So I don't see why lots of departments have taken it on board already. So I don't see why the department or any departments would want students to miss out on their teaching.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you plan to increase value for money then?
Well, I also don't want people to actually have to miss their lectures at all. Lecture capture is like in the worst case scenario that you have to. So I think working around making Wednesdays a bit more sport focused, so maybe starting lectures an hour early or finishing an hour earlier.
But wouldn't that create too many clashes? Maybe not all departments can finish like lectures early or do them in the mornings.
I appreciate that, but it's obviously a solution we need to work towards. But another thing that I feel quite passionate about is also working with Bucks to make sure that we can get there on time so that the learning isn't punished. For instance, myself this year, we petitioned to get one of our matches half an hour later through Bucks, so it's quite easy to negotiate with universities like
so
that.
Do you have some sort of backup idea if in case that moving lectures back or doing the capturing idea you said doesn't go to plan?
To be honest, not really, because I feel like those two solutions are the best ones that we can push forward, and it's really the way that the university is moving towards.
Okay, so before we end off today's episode, we're going to play a quick word association game. So I'm going to rapid fire some words, and the first word that comes into your mind, just smash it out. Remember, the point is you have to be quick. Right, you ready?
Okay.
First word: union.
Students.
Sports.
Netball.
Students.
Union.
Inspiration.
Motivation.
Grace.
Brady.
Lust.
TV.
Goal.
Score.
Ooh. Change.
Uni.
Leicester.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for
Cheers.
having me.